The old alien sat down slowly in the big chair. His four eyes looked tired and scared. His scaly hands shook, but not because he was old. They shook because he remembered things that still gave him nightmares. The huge room was full of aliens from all over the galaxy. There were bug-like creatures with sharp teeth. There were tall, thin beings made of crystal. There were things that looked like living shadows. All of them sat quietly and waited. Above their heads, fake stars moved in circles. The stars reminded everyone of all the worlds that almost died, all the civilizations that came so close to ending forever. The chief judge spoke. His voice came through machines that made everyone understand, no matter what language they spoke. Tell us about the day the humans came back. The old soldier made a clicking sound with his mouth. It was like laughing, but there was no joy in it, only pain and fear. You want to know about humans? About that day? His voice sounded like someone who had seen impossible things. I was there. I was on the Zerion front line when the whole galaxy learned what it meant to make humans angry. He stopped talking and looked at the fake stars above. His old eyes reflected the light like broken mirrors. We thought we were the strongest. We thought we were the smartest. We thought we were the best fighters in the galaxy. His voice got very quiet, but somehow everyone could still hear him. We were wrong about everything. Most of all, we were wrong about them. The big screen in front of them turned on. It showed star maps from long ago. 300 years ago when everything changed. This is my story. This is how the galaxy learned to be afraid of, and to respect, the people who call themselves human. 300 years ago, the old soldier's eyes went dark as he remembered. It started small. Humans were new to space travel. Their ships were ugly and slow compared to ours. When they first came to us asking for help, we laughed at them. The screen showed pictures of the first human ships. They looked like metal boxes with engines stuck on the back. Next to the beautiful alien ships that looked like art made of light and crystal, the human ships looked like junk. I remember the meeting, the old soldier said. The human leader was a woman named Captain Sarah Martinez. She came to ask for protection. Her people were being attacked by raiders. Their colonies were being burned. Their children were being killed. The screen showed Captain Martinez standing in front of the Galactic Council. She was small compared to the huge aliens around her. Her uniform was plain and simple. She looked very tired. Please, she had said, we just want to live in peace. We will trade with you. We will share our knowledge. We will follow your laws. We just need protection from the raiders who are hunting us. The alien leaders had looked at each other and made sounds like laughing. The Zephyrian ambassador, made of living crystal, spoke first. Your entire species has fewer ships than my personal guard. What could you possibly offer us that we would want? The Zerion war chief had been even cruder. Your people die too easily. If you cannot protect yourselves, maybe you do not deserve to live. Captain Martinez had stood there, taking all their insults. Her face showed no anger, but her hands were tight fists at her sides. We are asking for the right to exist, she said simply. Nothing more. The Andromedian trademaster had waved one of his 6 arms. The galaxy is for the strong. Find some empty corner of space and try not to bother us again. The old soldier's voice got even quieter. We sent them away. We told them the galaxy had no room for weaklings. We told them to handle their own problems. The screen showed human colonies burning in space, ships full of families being destroyed by raiders who thought it was fun to hunt humans, children crying for help that never came, messages sent to the galactic authorities that were ignored or deleted. The raiders got bolder, the old soldier continued. They started broadcasting their attacks for entertainment. Rich aliens would bet on how long human settlements would last. It became a sport. Images flashed by. The Kepler massacre, where 10,000 humans died in one day. The siege of New Tokyo Colony, where families barricaded themselves in schools while raiders burned everything around them. The destruction of the farming world haven, where human children were used for target practice. And through it all, the old soldier said, humans kept asking for help. They sent messages to every government, every military, every organization in the galaxy. Please, they said, please help us. We have children dying. We have families that need protection. Please, someone, anyone, help us. The alien audience in the courtroom shifted uncomfortably. Many of them remembered those messages. Most of them remembered ignoring them. But no one came, the old soldier said. No one answered their calls. No one cared that an entire species was being slowly wiped out for entertainment. The screen showed the worst attack of all. The destruction of the human colony ship New Hope. It was full of refugees, families running from other attacks, hoping to find somewhere safe. The raiders had surrounded it and broadcast the attack live across the galaxy. "I watched that broadcast," the old soldier said, and his voice cracked. "We all did. It was on every channel. 20,000 humans trapped in a ship with no weapons, no shields, no way to fight back. The raiders took their time. They made it last for hours." The courtroom was completely silent now. Even the alien leaders who had given the orders looked ashamed. The human captain made one last message before they died. The old soldier continued. "Captain James Chen. I still remember his words exactly. We came to space believing the galaxy was full of civilized beings who would help those in need. We were wrong. We die alone, but we do not die quietly. Someone will remember us. Someone will come for our children." The screen showed Captain Chen, blood on his uniform, his ship falling apart around him. But his eyes were not afraid. They were angry in a way that made the old soldier's scales crawl even now, 300 years later. "You think this ends with us," Captain Chen had said. "You think you can kill us all and nothing will happen. You are wrong. We are not the first generation of humans to face extinction, but we are the first to die in space, and our deaths will echo across the stars until someone hears them and comes to answer." Then the ship exploded, taking 20,000 human lives with it. "The galaxy celebrated," the old soldier said bitterly. The human problem was almost solved. A few more years of raids and there would be no more humans to worry about. No more begging messages, no more requests for help, no more weak species cluttering up the galaxy. The screen went dark for a moment. Then it showed something else. Long-range sensors detecting movement in the empty space beyond the human home system. Something big. Something moving very fast toward the center of the galaxy. But then, the old soldier said, and his voice changed. It became full of fear and wonder and terrible respect. Then our deep space scanners picked up something impossible. The image on the screen made every alien in the courtroom gasp. It was a fleet. The biggest fleet anyone had ever seen. Thousands and thousands of ships all moving together, all heading straight for the galaxy's most powerful worlds. "We thought it was an invasion from another galaxy," the old soldier said. "The ships were like nothing we had ever seen. Not the crude metal boxes the humans had flown before. These were weapons of war, perfect killing machines made of steel and fury and the promise of revenge." He looked up at the courtroom full of aliens, the same species who had once ruled the galaxy through fear and strength. Now they all looked small and scared. "It took us 3 days to figure out what we were looking at. 3 days of panic and preparation for war. 3 days of wondering what alien super race had come to destroy us all." The old soldier's 4 eyes focused on something far away, something that still haunted his dreams. Then we got the message. It came on every frequency and every language, broadcast so loud it could be heard from one end of the galaxy to the other. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of history itself. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You wanted to see how humans handle their problems. You told us the galaxy was for the strong. You said no one would come to help the weak." The silence in the courtroom was complete. "Well," the old soldier continued, his voice barely a whisper, "we came to help ourselves." He looked directly at the chief judge, and his ancient eyes burned with the memory of that terrible day. "They thought no one would come. They thought no one would come, but someone had come, and that someone was very, very angry." The old alien soldier leaned forward in his chair. His 4 eyes looked at the courtroom full of aliens who were listening to his story. Many of them had been alive during those terrible days. They remembered what happened next. "When Admiral Chen's message ended," he said slowly, "the galaxy panicked. But not because we were scared of humans. We were scared because we didn't know who was really coming." The big screen showed the emergency meetings that happened across the galaxy. Alien leaders rushed to their war rooms. Military commanders studied the sensor readings of the huge fleet heading their way. The Zarian High Command called an emergency meeting, the old soldier remembered. "I was there as a junior officer." General Vaktar stood in front of the war map and laughed. Actually laughed. The Zarian war room, 300 years ago. The screen showed a dark room full of reptilian aliens in military uniforms. They looked like giant lizards standing on 2 legs with sharp teeth and cruel eyes. At the front of the room, General Vaktar pointed at the sensor readings. "Look at these numbers," he said, his voice full of amusement. Yes, they have many ships. But we've seen human technology. Their weapons are weak. Their shields are pathetic. Their ships are slow. The other officers made hissing sounds that meant agreement. Even if they have 10,000 ships, said Colonel Zekra, our single dreadnought could destroy 100 of theirs. General Vaktar nodded. This Admiral Chen thinks numbers will save her people. She doesn't understand that quantity means nothing without quality. We will destroy this human fleet and finish what the raiders started. The old soldier's voice got quieter as he remembered. I was young then. I believed my commanders were right. Humans were weak. We had seen their ships fall apart under raider attacks. How could they suddenly become dangerous? Meanwhile, on the human ship New Sol, the screen changed to show the inside of a human ship. It looked very different from the alien war rooms. The walls were plain metal. The lights were white and bright. Everything looked simple but strong. Jinha stood at a window looking out at the stars. He was a tall man with dark hair and sad eyes. Behind him, his sister Haren worked at a computer. She was smaller than him, but her eyes were just as hard. The aliens are moving their fleets, Haren said, reading reports on her screen. They think this will be easy. Jinha nodded slowly. They still think we're the same humans who begged for their help. He turned away from the window. His face was cold like winter ice. They don't know what we became when they left us to die. On the screen, Haren pulled up files showing human colonies that had been destroyed. Pictures of burned cities, lists of dead children, video messages from families crying for help that never came. Show me the Kepler files again, Jinha said quietly. Haren hesitated. Brother, you've seen them 100 times. Show me. The screen filled with images from the Kepler massacre. Raiders had surrounded the peaceful farming colony and broadcast their attack for entertainment. Families had hidden in their homes while alien ships burned everything around them. Children had called for their parents. Parents had died trying to protect their babies. Jinha watched without blinking. I was supposed to be there, he said. My transport was delayed by engine trouble. If I had arrived on time, I would have died with them. Haren stopped working and looked at her brother. That's not your fault. No, Jinha agreed. It's theirs. He pointed at the screen showing alien military ships moving to intercept the human fleet. And now they get to pay for it. On the mining station Arcturus Alpha, Jake Morrison sat in a small, dark room full of stolen alien equipment. He was a man in his 40s with scars on his hands and face. His job was to fix mining machines, but his real work was much more important. For 2 years, Jake had been stealing information from alien ships that visited the mining station. He copied their star charts. He recorded their military codes. He learned the locations of their secret bases and weak points. Come on, he whispered as his computer uploaded the stolen data to a hidden transmitter. The information was going to Admiral Chen's fleet, telling them exactly where to hit the aliens where it would hurt most. Jake's door opened and Quan walked in. Quan was a big man with muscles like steel cables. His face looked like it was carved from stone. He had been a Marine before the massacre started. Now he was something else, something harder. The alien patrol ship just left, Quan said. Did you get everything? Jake nodded and pointed at his computer screen. Complete battle plans for the Xerion defense grid, location of their main fleet bases. And the best part, he smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. I know exactly how many ships they really have. It's a lot less than they claim. Quan looked at the numbers and his stone face almost smiled. Admiral Chen will like this. The lizards have been lying about their strength for years. There's more, Jake said. He pulled up another file. Remember the Andromedian Trade Council? The bug people who refused to help during the New Hope attack? I remember. They've been selling weapons to the raiders, giving them maps to human colonies. They weren't just ignoring our calls for help. They were actively helping our enemies kill us. Quan's hands closed into fists so tight his knuckles turned white. Evidence? Jake held up a data crystal. Enough evidence to prove they committed genocide for profit. On the research station Titan base, Dr. Lisa Park stood in her laboratory, but it didn't look like a normal science lab anymore. The walls were covered with pictures of destroyed human colonies. The tables were full of alien technology that she had taken apart and studied. Lisa had been a peaceful scientist before the massacres. She studied alien biology because she wanted to help humans and aliens understand each other better. She believed in cooperation and friendship between species. That was before the raiders killed her research team. Before she watched her students die in the attack on Titan base, before she learned that some of the aliens she had trusted were secretly helping the killers. Now she studied alien biology for a different reason. Computer, show me the analysis of Zephyrian genetic structure, she said. The screen showed the DNA patterns of the crystal aliens who had refused to help humanity. Lisa had been studying them for months, learning exactly how their bodies worked, finding their weaknesses. Fascinating, she said quietly. Their crystalline biology makes them almost impossible to hurt with normal weapons. But it also makes them extremely vulnerable to specific frequency attacks. She touched a button and another file opened. And the Xerian reptilians. Their regeneration abilities make them very hard to kill, unless you know the right chemical compound to shut down their healing factor. Lisa looked at the picture of her dead students on the wall. Young people who had believed, like she once did, that the galaxy was full of civilized beings who would protect the innocent. "I'm sorry," she whispered to their pictures. "I'm sorry I was naive. I'm sorry I believed in peace when you needed me to prepare for war." She turned back to her computer and began working on something that would have horrified her old self. But her old self had died with her students. What remained was something much more dangerous. A scientist who understood exactly how to hurt the aliens who had hurt humanity. Back in the courtroom, present. The old alien soldier looked at all the faces staring at him. Many of them looked ashamed. They remembered those days when they thought humans were weak and stupid. "We didn't know," he said quietly, "that humans like Jinha and Haran were preparing detailed attack plans. We didn't know that Jake Morrison had been stealing our military secrets for years. We didn't know that Dr. Lisa Park had learned exactly how to kill each of our species." The screen showed the human fleet getting closer to the galaxy's core worlds. Thousands of ships moving in perfect formation. Not the crude metal boxes that aliens remembered, but sleek warships that looked like they were built for only one purpose: killing aliens efficiently. Most of all, the old soldier continued, we didn't know that humans had spent the years after our betrayal doing something that no species in galactic history had ever done. He paused and looked directly at the chief judge. They had learned from every single attack against them. Every weakness the raiders found in human defenses had been fixed. Every tactic used against them had been studied and countered. Every piece of alien technology had been improved upon. The old soldier's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the huge courtroom. We thought we were fighting the same weak humans who had begged us for help. But those humans were gone. They had died in the massacres we allowed to happen. The screen showed close-up images of the approaching human ships. Even through the sensors, they looked deadly, like metal sharks swimming through space hungry for alien blood. What was coming toward us was something new, something we had created with our cruelty and neglect, something that had learned to survive by becoming the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. The old soldier stood up slowly, his ancient body trembling with the memory of what came next. The humans were no longer asking for our help. They were no longer begging for protection. They were coming to collect a debt that the galaxy owed in blood. His 4 eyes reflected the light from the fake stars above, and in them, every alien in the courtroom could see the terror of that day when everything changed. The old alien soldier's hands shook as he remembered the next part of his story. In the courtroom, every alien leaned forward to listen. They all knew what was coming. The day that changed everything. 3 days after Admiral Chen's message, he said slowly, our long-range sensors got a clear look at the human fleet. What we saw made no sense. The big screen showed the sensor readings from that day, numbers that seemed impossible, ship counts that made alien military computers crash from trying to calculate them. 2,700 ships, the old soldier said. That's what our sensors counted. But humans had never had more than 50 ships total in their entire history. Where did they get so many? He looked around the courtroom at all the alien faces. We didn't understand then that humans don't just build ships to explore space. When humans get angry, they build ships to end wars. The bridge of the UEF Retribution, 300 years ago, Commander Rex stood on the bridge of the biggest human ship anyone had ever seen. He was an old man with white hair and scars on his face from fighting in Earth's wars. His eyes were blue like winter ice, and when he looked at something, it usually died. Behind him, through the huge windows, stretched the largest military force in galactic history. Massive battleships that looked like metal mountains floating in space.
Carrier ships full of fighters.
And at the back of the fleet, 4 ships so big they made planets look small. "Status report," Commander Rex said in a voice that cut through the bridge noise like a knife. The tactical officer, a young woman with nervous hands, read from her screen. "Sir, fleet is in position. All ships report ready for combat. The aliens are moving to intercept us." Commander Rex nodded once. It was a tiny movement, but somehow it felt like watching a mountain decide to fall on someone. "How many alien ships?" "Our count shows about 800 vessels, sir. Much smaller than our force." "Good." Commander Rex walked to the communications station. "Open a channel to all ships. It's time to explain some things to our new neighbors." Across the human fleet on every ship, soldiers and pilots and engineers stopped what they were doing to listen to their commander. These weren't the same humans who had once begged aliens for help. These people had lost families to alien cruelty. They had watched their friends die while aliens laughed. They had spent years preparing for this moment. Sarah Chen stood in the war room of the battleship Yamato. She had been a diplomat once, trying to make peace with aliens who saw humans as amusing pets. Now she wore the uniform of a fleet commander, and her eyes held the kind of cold anger that freezes stars. Around her, holographic displays showed every alien military base within 50 light years. Every weak point, every hidden weapon, every secret the aliens thought humans didn't know about. "Attention all ships," Commander Rex's voice came through the speakers. "Today we remind the galaxy why Earth survived asteroid impacts and ice ages. Why every predator that ever hunted humans became extinct. Why our species climbed from caves to stars." Sarah looked at the tactical displays showing alien fleets moving to attack them, the same aliens who had refused to help when human children were dying. Her hand moved to a control panel, ready to begin the war that would reshape the galaxy. "Today," Commander Rex continued, "they learned that humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our numbers. It was our absolute refusal to let evil go unpunished." On the stealth ship Soul's Fire, Jinha stood in the dark bridge of a ship that alien sensors couldn't detect. Around him, his crew prepared weapons that aliens didn't know humans possessed. These weren't the crude missiles and lasers that raiders had laughed at. These were tools built by a species that had spent its entire history learning how to kill things that were bigger and stronger. "Target acquired," his weapons officer reported. "Zerion Command Station, exactly where Jake Morrison said it would be." Jinha looked at the screen showing the massive alien space station. It was the size of a small moon, covered with weapons and shields that the reptilian aliens thought made them safe. They were wrong. "Harin, are you ready?" He spoke into his communicator. His sister's voice came back from the science ship Retribution's Edge. "I've been ready for years, brother. Their shield frequencies are exactly what Dr. Park predicted. We can punch through their defenses like they're made of paper." Jinha smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone about to collect a debt that was 3 years overdue. "Then let's show them what happens when you leave humans to die. In the deep space laboratories, Doctor." Lisa Park sat surrounded by weapons that looked like medical equipment. For 2 years, she had been designing tools specifically made to hurt the aliens who had hurt humanity. Not quick deaths, that would be too merciful. Slow, terrifying deaths that would make other aliens think twice before attacking humans again. "Biological. Agent is ready for deployment," she reported to Commander Rex. "The Zephyrian crystal-based aliens will experience complete system shutdown within minutes of exposure. The Zerion reptilians will lose their ability to heal, making them vulnerable to conventional weapons." She looked at a picture on her desk. Her research team from before the massacres. Young scientists who had believed in peaceful cooperation between species. They had died screaming while aliens broadcast their deaths for entertainment. "For every human child that died calling for help," she whispered, "1,000 aliens will learn what fear feels like." The first battle begins. The alien fleets approached the human armada with confidence. They still believed they were fighting the weak species that had once begged for protection. The Zerion warships moved in the same formations they had used for 1,000 years. The Zephyrian crystal ships glowed with the same energy weapons that had conquered dozens of worlds. They opened fire first. The old alien soldier's voice cracked as he remembered. "I was on the command ship Devourer when we attacked the human fleet. General Vaktar was so confident that he didn't even bother with battle armor. He said the fight would be over in minutes. The screen showed the moment when thousands of alien weapons hit the human fleet, laser beams and plasma missiles that should have destroyed the crude human ships in seconds. But the human ships didn't explode. They didn't even slow down. Their shields, the old soldier whispered. Their shields were like nothing we had ever seen. Our most powerful weapons just bounced off them like raindrops on steel. Then the humans fired back. I had never heard silence like that. The old soldier said. On our bridge, every alarm went quiet at the same time. Every screen went dark. Every weapon stopped working. The human response wasn't the crude missiles that aliens remembered. It was something that made space itself seem to bend and break. Alien ships that had seemed invincible simply came apart, their pieces floating away like leaves in a storm. Commander Rex stood on his bridge watching alien fleets die, and his voice echoed across every human ship. This is for the New Hope. This is for Kepler Colony. This is for every child who died alone because no one answered their call for help. Quan led the Marines preparing to board alien ships. His soldiers were no longer the desperate defenders who had once fought raiders with mining tools. They were something aliens had no word for. Humans who had nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. Jake Morrison flew his fighter through the wreckage of alien ships, his weapons targeting the command vessels with precision that terrified alien pilots. Remember us now? He broadcast on all frequencies as another alien ship exploded. Remember the people you said weren't worth saving? Back in the courtroom, present day, the old alien soldier looked at his hands. They were still shaking after 300 years. In 30 minutes, the human fleet destroyed forces that had taken us centuries to build. Ships that had conquered entire star systems were turned into floating scrap metal. Around the courtroom, aliens who had been alive during that battle nodded sadly. They remembered the reports, the impossible losses, the realization that humans weren't weak. They had been holding back. But the worst part, the old soldier continued, wasn't the ships we lost. It was the message that came after the battle ended. The screen showed Admiral Sarah Chen standing on her bridge, surrounded by the tactical displays of a dozen conquered alien systems. Her voice when she spoke carried the weight of species that had learned to survive by becoming apex predators. Attention all alien governments, she said calmly. You told us the galaxy was for the strong. You said the weak deserved to die. You refused to help when our children called for protection. The image zoomed in on her face, showing eyes that had seen too much death and learned too much about the cost of mercy. You were right about one thing. The galaxy is for the strong. Today you learned who the strong really are. The old soldier's voice dropped to barely a whisper, but every alien in the courtroom heard him clearly. That was when we realized the truth. Humans had never been weak. They had been merciful, and we had mistaken their mercy for weakness right up until the moment they decided to stop being merciful. He stood up slowly, his ancient frame carrying the memory of everything that changed that day. They thought no one would come, but the humans came, and they brought the wrath of a species that had spent 10,000 years learning how to turn their enemies into extinct memories. For 7 years we experienced what humans had lived through for decades, he said quietly. The fear of attack, the desperation of calling for help that never came. The knowledge that somewhere in the galaxy, creatures more powerful than us were deciding whether we deserved to live or die. The screen showed the final battles, where human fleets moved through alien space like death itself, unstoppable and merciless. We learned that humans hadn't been weak, the old soldier continued. They had been holding back. They had been trying to solve their problems peacefully, because that's what civilized beings do. But when civilization failed them, they became something that civilization had no defense against. He stood up slowly, his 4 eyes reflecting the artificial starlight from above. By the end of the war, every alien species in the galaxy had learned the same lesson. Never, ever mistake human mercy for human weakness, because the day humans stop being merciful is the day your species joins the extinct ones that came before you. The silence in the courtroom was complete. Even the artificial stars seemed to dim as the old soldier spoke his final words about the war. They thought no one would come, but humanity came with the fury of a species that had learned the galaxy's most important lesson. If you want peace, you must be strong enough to make war so terrible that no one dares to start it. The old alien soldier's 4 eyes looked empty as he remembered the worst parts of his story. Around the courtroom, Aliens who had lived through those dark days sat in complete silence. They all knew what came next. After the first battle, he said quietly, "We thought maybe the humans would stop. Maybe they had proven their point. Maybe they would accept our surrender and go home." He shook his head slowly. "We were wrong again. The humans weren't fighting to prove a point. They were fighting to make sure what happened to them would never happen to anyone else ever again." The big screen showed star maps of the galaxy. One by one, red markers appeared over alien worlds. Each red marker meant the same thing. The humans had come and nothing would ever be the same. "The galaxy burned for 7 years," the old soldier whispered. Not the clean fire of stars, but the angry fire of justice finally catching up with evil. The siege of Zarian Prime. 6 years into the war commander, Rex stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the alien world that had once seemed impossible to conquer. Zarian Prime was covered with cities made of living crystal that could repair themselves. Its orbital defenses had protected it for over 1,000 years. Now half the planet was dark. The crystal cities were cracked and broken. The mighty defense stations floated in pieces around the world like a belt of metal garbage. "Final assault group. Report," Commander Rex said in his calm, cold voice. Quan's voice came through the speakers. He was leading the ground troops that were fighting in the alien cities below. "Resistance is breaking, sir. They are asking to surrender." "What are your orders regarding surrender?" Commander Rex asked. There was a long pause. Everyone on the bridge knew that Quan had lost his entire family in the Kepler massacre. His wife and 2 young children had died calling for help that never came while aliens watched for entertainment. "Sir," Quan finally said, "I remember what they told us when we asked for mercy. They said the galaxy was for the strong. Today, they learn what that really means." The screen showed human soldiers moving through the crystal cities like ghosts of vengeance. These weren't the desperate colonists who had once begged for protection. These were warriors who had been shaped by loss into something that made aliens wake up screaming. The Andromedian trade worlds, 4 years into. The War Jinha stood in the ruins of the great trading station, where aliens had once laughed at human requests for help. The same beings who had called humans amusing primitives now hid in their emergency bunkers, sending desperate messages begging for mercy. "Please," came the voice of Trademaster Clicks over the communication system. "We can negotiate. We have resources you need. We can make a deal." Jinha looked at the holographic display showing the alien's 6-armed form cowering in a reinforced shelter. This was the same creature who had waved dismissively when Captain Martinez asked for protection for human children. "You had decades to negotiate," Jinha said calmly. "You chose profit over peace. You sold weapons to our enemies. You gave them maps to our colonies so they could hunt our families more efficiently." He touched a control and the station's power grid began shutting down section by section. In the darkness, alien screams echoed through, corridors that had never known fear. "Now, you get to experience what our children felt in their final moments, alone, afraid, with no one coming to help." The Zephyrian crystal worlds, 5 years into. The Warharin watched from her science ship as the beautiful crystal cities of Zephyra turned to dust under human weapons. She felt no joy in the destruction, but she felt no sadness either. These beings had refused to help when human settlements were being burned for entertainment. "Dr. Park's biological weapon is working perfectly," she reported to the fleet command. "The Zephyrian immune systems are shutting down exactly as predicted. They're experiencing total system failure. On the planet below, the crystal aliens who had thought themselves superior to primitive humans were learning that human science could be just as deadly as human weapons. Dr. Lisa Park had designed the perfect virus, one that turned their crystalline bodies against them, making them feel every moment of pain that human children had felt while dying. "Ma'am," one of Harin's officers said quietly, "they're broadcasting surrender offers on all frequencies." Harin looked at the readings showing millions of aliens dying slowly on the planet below. For a moment, she remembered the scientist she had once been, back when she believed in peaceful cooperation between species. That woman had died with the children of Kepler colony. "Ignore their surrender," she said coldly. "They ignored ours." The deep space battle of Corvin Nebula. 3 years into the war, Jake Morrison flew his fighter through a graveyard of alien ships. Around him, thousands of human pilots, hunted down the scattered remains of what had once been the galaxy's most powerful fleet. Ghost leader to all wings, he spoke into his radio as they chased down the fleeing alien vessels. Remember, these are the ones who broadcast our people's deaths for entertainment. Show them the same mercy they showed the passengers of the New Hope. The space around them filled with explosions as human fighters destroyed alien ships that tried to escape. But this wasn't random violence, it was surgical, precise, professional. Every alien ship destroyed was one that had participated in attacking human colonies or had refused to help when humans asked for protection. Jake's target was a command ship trying to reach the safety of an allied system, the same type of ship that had watched human refugees die without lifting a finger to help. This is for Captain Chen and the 20,000 people you watched burn, Jake said as his weapons locked onto the fleeing vessel. The alien ship exploded in a bright flash that reminded him of the New Hope's final moments. But this time, it was the aliens who died alone and afraid. The biological research labs. Throughout the war doctor. Lisa Park worked in her laboratory surrounded by weapons that looked like medical equipment. For 7 years, she had been perfecting ways to make alien species suffer exactly as they had made humans suffer. The Corvin species prides itself on their advanced healing abilities, she said to her research team. They believe it makes them superior to humans who die so easily from injury. She held up a small vial of clear liquid. This compound shuts down their regeneration permanently. Every wound they receive will be permanent. Every pain they feel will last forever. Her assistants, all of them survivors of alien attacks on human worlds, nodded grimly. They remembered their friends and families dying while aliens refused to help. Now they were making sure those aliens experienced the same helplessness. For the Etherian Collective, Dr. Park continued, holding up another vial. Something special. They claimed that their advanced minds made them more evolved than humans. This virus targets their neural pathways specifically. It makes them experience every emotion their victims felt. The fear, the desperation, the abandonment. She looked at the pictures of dead human children on the laboratory walls. They wanted to see human science at work. Now they're experiencing the full extent of what humans can accomplish when we put our minds to destruction instead of creation. The final battles. 7 years into the war, Sarah, Chen stood in the command center of the orbital station above Earth, looking at tactical displays that showed human fleets in control of half the galaxy. What had started as a rescue mission had become a complete reshaping of galactic civilization. Status report on remaining alien resistance, she ordered. Ma'am, her intelligence officer replied. Most organized resistance has collapsed. The remaining alien governments are sending constant surrender offers. Some are offering to become human colonies in exchange for survival. Sarah looked at the star map showing human ships patrolling systems where alien children now hid in bunkers, afraid of the dark because that's when human raiders came. She felt no satisfaction in their fear, but she felt no mercy either. What's the casualty count? She asked. Human losses. Approximately 50,000 military personnel over 7 years of fighting. Alien losses, the officer paused, checking his numbers. Conservative estimates put alien military and civilian casualties at over 2 billion. Sarah nodded slowly. It was a terrible number, but she remembered the 3 billion humans who had died while aliens watched and laughed. Send a message to all remaining alien governments. The communication went out across the galaxy. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. For 7 years, you have experienced what it means to fight a species that refuses to die quietly. You have learned that humans were never weak. We were simply choosing to be merciful. Her image appeared on screens across thousands of worlds, showing a woman who had been transformed by loss and rage into something that made entire civilizations surrender, without fighting. You told us the galaxy was for the strong. You were right. The galaxy belongs to us now. Back in the courtroom, present day. The old alien soldier sat in his chair, his ancient body trembling with the memory of those terrible years. Around him, the aliens in the courtroom, the survivors and descendants of the species that had once ruled through fear, listened in shameful silence. The silence was complete. Even the artificial stars seemed to pause in their rotation. We were wrong. Someone did come. Someone always comes. Because humans made a promise written in starfire and sealed with the blood of 2 civilizations. The old soldier's voice carried the weight of an oath that had shaped 3 centuries of galactic history. Never again will anyone call for help and hear only silence. Never again will the strong prey upon the weak without consequence. Never again will anyone die alone while others choose not to care. He sat down slowly, his story finally complete. They thought no one would come. Now everyone knows that someone always will. The testimony ended. The courtroom remained silent. And in that silence, the galaxy remembered why it had learned to choose compassion over convenience, protection over profit, and mercy over might. The humans had taught them well. The old alien soldier looked around the courtroom one last time. His 4 eyes were tired, but they held a strange kind of peace. After 300 years, he was finally finishing the story that had haunted his dreams. The war ended, he said simply, but not the way any of us expected. The big screen showed images from the final days of the conflict. Human fleets in control of most of the galaxy, alien survivors hiding on scattered worlds, waiting for the humans to finish what they had started. Everyone expected the complete destruction of non-human life. We were ready to die, the old soldier admitted. After 7 years of experiencing what we had put humans through, we knew we deserved whatever they chose to do to us. But then something happened that confused every alien in the galaxy. The humans stopped. The moment. Everything changed. The screen showed Admiral Sarah, Chen standing on the bridge of her flagship above the ruins of Xerion Prime. Around her, human officers waited for the order to finish destroying the alien homeworld. The planet below was defenseless. Its people were starving. Its cities were broken. One word from Sarah and the entire Xerion species would become extinct. "Ma'am," her tactical officer said quietly, "all weapons are charged and ready. We can finish this." Sarah looked at the planet where alien children hid in the rubble of their homes, just as human children had once hidden from alien raiders. For a long moment she was silent. Then she did something that shocked every human in the fleet. "Stand down, all weapons," she ordered. "Ma'am?" The tactical officer couldn't believe what he was hearing. "I said stand down." Sarah's voice was firm. "Open a channel to the planet below." The communication went out to every surviving Xerion on their dying world. Sarah's image appeared on their emergency screens, the face of the human who had brought their mighty empire to its knees. "People of Xerion," she said, and her voice was different now. Not the cold fury of war, but something else. Something that sounded almost like the old diplomatic Sarah from before the massacres. 7 years ago, your leaders told my people that the galaxy was for the strong. They were right. Today we are the strongest. By the rules your people made, we could destroy you all and take everything you have. The aliens on the planet below waited for their death sentence. But, Sarah continued, we are not you. We remember what it felt like to be helpless. We remember what it felt like to call for mercy and receive none. We will not become the monsters that you were. She paused, and when she spoke again, her words would echo through galactic history. Effective immediately, all human military forces will begin providing humanitarian aid to surviving alien populations. We will rebuild what war has destroyed. We will heal what violence has wounded. We will show you what mercy really looks like. The transformation begins. The old alien soldier's voice grew softer as he remembered what happened next. At first, we didn't believe them. We thought it was a trick. Humans had every reason to destroy us completely. The screen showed human ships landing on devastated alien worlds. But instead of soldiers with weapons, the ships carried doctors and engineers and teachers. Instead of bringing destruction, they brought food and medicine and hope. Dr. Lisa Park stood in a medical tent on Zephyria, treating the same crystal aliens she had once designed weapons to kill. Her hands, which had created viruses to destroy alien immune systems, now worked to heal the survivors of her biological warfare. "Why?" asked the young Zephyrian child she was treating. "Why are you helping us after what we did to your people?" Lisa looked at the child, barely old enough to walk, born during the war, innocent of the crimes that had started it all. "Because," she said gently, "someone has to choose to make things better instead of worse." On Xerion Prime, Quan led construction teams rebuilding the crystal cities his Marines had destroyed. The same alien civilians who had once watched human colonies burn now worked alongside human engineers to restore their world. "I don't understand," said Elder Vaktar. the son of the general who had led the attacks on human settlements. My father killed your people. Your people killed mine. Why aren't you making us pay forever? Quan stopped working and looked at the young alien. Because, he said simply, hatred is a fire that burns everything it touches. If we keep feeding it, eventually there won't be anything left in the galaxy worth saving. The new galaxy takes shape. Commander Rex became the first human to serve as galactic peacekeeping chief. His job was to make sure that what had happened to humanity never happened to any species again. Human or alien. The rules are simple, he announced in his first address to the Reformed Galactic Council. Strong species protect weak ones. Advanced civilizations help primitive ones. When someone calls for help, someone comes. No exceptions. The screen showed the new council chambers where humans sat alongside the aliens they had defeated, former enemies working together to build something better than what had existed before. Jinha established the Refugee Protection Service, using human military technology to defend any species that faced extinction. His ships patrolled the galaxy, ready to respond instantly to any call for help, the help that humans had once been denied. Haran founded the Institute of Interspecies Understanding, where young humans and aliens learned about each other's cultures and histories. The goal was to make sure future generations would never repeat the mistakes that led to war. We study the past, she told her students, not to hold grudges, but to understand how good people can make terrible choices when they stop seeing others as equals. Jake Morrison created the Galactic Search and Rescue Service, with ships faster than anything the old galaxy had possessed. His teams responded to disasters anywhere in known space, saving lives regardless of what species needed help. No one dies alone anymore, became their motto. No call for help goes unanswered. The price of peace. The old alien soldier's voice grew heavy with emotion as he reached the end of his story. But the humans didn't forget what had been done to them. They couldn't. The scars were too deep. The screen showed Sarah Chen in her later years, serving as the first director of Galactic Humanitarian Affairs. She had spent decades rebuilding the galaxy, but her eyes still held the sadness of someone who had lost too much. She never had children, the old soldier said quietly. None of the human leaders from that time did. They said they couldn't bring new life into a galaxy that had shown such cruelty to the innocent. Dr. Lisa Park had devoted her final years to developing cures for the diseases she had once weaponized. But she worked alone, never forming close friendships with the alien colleagues she helped. She saved millions of alien lives, the old soldier continued. But she never trusted us. Not completely. How could she after what we had done? Commander Rex had died peacefully at the age of 97, surrounded by the alien leaders who had become his friends and allies. But his final words, recorded by his bedside, revealed the cost of the war. I'm glad we chose mercy, he had whispered, but I still dream about the children we couldn't save. I always will. The lesson that must never be forgotten. The old alien soldier stood up slowly, his ancient body carrying the weight of 3 centuries of memory. Around him, the courtroom full of mixed species, human and alien representatives working together, waited for his final words. This is why I tell this story, he said, his voice reaching every corner of the vast chamber, not to make anyone feel guilty about the past, but to remember why the present is possible. He looked at the young faces in the audience, alien children who had grown up in a galaxy protected by human fleets, human children who had grown up learning alien languages and cultures. Humans could have destroyed us all. They had the power. They had the right. They had every reason for revenge. He paused, letting the weight of that truth settle over everyone. Instead, they chose to build something better. They chose to become the protectors they had once needed. They chose to answer calls for help instead of ignoring them. The screen showed the modern galaxy, thousands of worlds where humans and aliens lived and worked together, where children of different species played in the same schools, where the strong protected the weak as a matter of basic decency. But, the old soldier's voice grew serious, this peace exists because humans remember what it cost them to achieve it. They remember the children who died alone. They remember the colonies that burned while others watched. They remember what happens when civilized beings choose to ignore suffering because it's convenient. He walked to the center of the courtroom, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Every human ship in our defense fleets carries the names of the colonies that were destroyed before the war. Every human officer takes an oath to answer any call for help, no matter how small. Every human child learns the story of what happened when their people trusted others to do what was right. The old soldier's 4 eyes swept across the mixed assembly of species that now governed the galaxy in peace. They learned the hardest lesson in the universe. If you want people to choose mercy, you must be strong enough to survive when they choose cruelty instead. He returned to his chair, but remained standing for his final words. That is my testimony. That is the truth every species in this galaxy must remember. 300 years ago, when human colonies burned and human children died, we thought no one would come to save them.